My disclosures, they're really all related to Gilead, the PROUD study. But I guess I'd like to acknowledge that there wouldn't be any PrEP studies, I think, without Gilead's help. But they gave us money to do the study, a small grant, part of the money, free drug, and they've paid other people for me to give talks. So 3 pillars of the STI clinic now and really forever: test, treat, and trace. And treatment, of course, includes vaccination and post-exposure prophylaxis, as well as pre-exposure prophylaxis. And the link to surveillance is absolutely key to inform strategy, so you know what you need to do next, what you need to change, and that might be to run a vaccination campaign, as we have done in the UK recently, Hep A vaccination for gay men following outbreaks. So you'll have seen this before, I suspect, many of you. Wafa told me to leave the music in because she said she liked the music. But if you haven't seen it, I think although this is a clinic that opened in 2014, it's still pretty future visionary. Doesn't look like a clinic outside or inside. People check in themselves. The link to the mobile is key. So the clinic number is linked to the SMS. Whatever they put in the history tells you what swabs you get. You go into your room, the room's quite funky, and in case you didn't know how to take a throat swab, there's a video to show you how. That video has been expanded now to make sure you label up the specimens properly before you put them in the pod. And then when it goes into the pod, off it goes to the lab where a giant Kefid machine awaits it. And the lab itself is very visible opposite reception, so you can see what's going on there. Now, although it looks quiet, this processes hundreds of specimens. Although it takes 90 minutes, as Rosanna said, we can really fill up that entire machine. And after 4 years, it is getting pretty tired. So I'm afraid occasionally that machine does crash and we have a little delay. But generally speaking, those results are generated within a couple of hours and sent by SMS. If you've gone downstairs because bloods are indicated, this is the moment you meet a healthcare professional. They will have seen the history on the screen and they will already have worked out what interventions they should recommend. Testing, but also it might be vaccination as well. There may be reference to the chemsex walk-in service that we run at the clinic or other support that people need. And then there you are later on, only hours later, and you are receiving your test results. So what have we done to update this model since I first presented, or it was first presented, because I wasn't the first person to present it for sure? Can you see here, the bottom line, the 3 monthly PrEP checkup has been added in and asked to come in for treatment. So a walk-in for treatment has now been added into this model, which originally started just to do asymptomatic routine screening for NATs and bloods. So now we know there'll be a short time to treatment. It's usually the same day, but obviously if people came in late in the day and this service is open till 8 p.m. in the evening, it will be the next day that they get that result. Viral loads are sent by text in the undetectables. People are undetectable and stable. They can pick up their treatment, 6 months worth of treatment, later in the day, or as I say, the next day if they've come in late in that day. Wherever possible, we'll give the treatment there and then because you know it's done. And partner notification is done directly or using contact slips or e-services. This is the piece I think we still do not do as well as we should or even could in today's technology. And then vaccination, so we're delivering Hep A, Hep B and HPV vaccination in that express clinic. So it's certainly more than just an express routine clinic screening now. And what's it done to the time to treatment? So these data are actually from 2015, but Gary and co have updated those in the International Journal of STD and AIDS in 2018. But you see this reduction from pre-express of 183 hours to 3.8 hours and time to treatment from 238 to 48 hours. I think that must be even lower now that we've introduced treatment. So what else have we done? So Gold Card and Prime. So they were launched at the Express in 2016, and this allowed people to walk in once a month. I think yesterday we talked about 3 monthly screening. This is another area of research, I think. Maybe not research. I mean, it seemed perfectly justified. It made sense, indeed, for people who had rectal infections, syphilis, PEP in the last year, because of the very high rates of HIV we were seeing in those populations, to offer them testing once a month. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this link to surveillance data, so you can see what's happening and what those results are really, really critical. So these are the NAT, gonorrhea and chlamydia results in HIV-negative gay men, going back to 2012, before the Express opened. So the Express opened here in the first quarter of 2014, February 2014, and you see the progress in the rapid uptake of tests and the increased volume that we were able to put through the Express clinic. And interestingly, if you were only tracking the numbers of infection, you would say these had gone up dramatically. But if you say what proportion of tests are positive, those have actually remained pretty constant. And even in the individuals who are coming back once a month, we still have just 10, 11% of those are positive. So that does at least feel like a justification to carry on in that group. There is this interesting phenomenon, which I think I have commented on before. These tests are obviously done together, so they're done as a pair. And interestingly, the gonorrhea appeared to have gone down in this period with no change to chlamydia. And I think we speculated about whether that might be the added advantage of frequent testing with gonorrhea, simply because you're a little bit more likely to get back to the index case with gonorrhea because of that shorter incubation period. And although it's asymptomatic screening, I think often people do get something with gonorrhea, some little tingle or something that brings them in. So you just might be closer to the exposure when you're screening for gonorrhea than you are for chlamydia. That's one possibility. And also during this period, we did have the superbug issue, where there was, the superbug, the super-resistant gonorrhea, that was very much in our campaigning and sort of social media messages and the PHE campaigns that they were running. And it could again be that if somebody contacts you with a text and says, I think you've been in contact with gonorrhea, you were just that bit more likely to go in and get screened in clinic. I don't know. We did not see, you see, this difference in positive gay men. So if you look at the same period here, you don't see that same difference in the gonorrhea tests. So it may just be, one of those things you see in surveillance data that means nothing. But what happened to HIV, the STI that you continue to take treatment for the rest of your life for, and the one that cost us the most to care for? Well, that decline that we had picked up in 2016 was sustained through 2017. And there's no room for complacency. It's definitely not gone away. We've just had, in fact, a relatively large number of new infections that we've seen in the clinic. But there does seem to be a slightly different pattern emerging. I don't think, anecdotally, that we are seeing people who are Rita positive, recent infection. I think we have got relatively good penetration of PrEP. We seem to be seeing people who are picked up in outreach and who are perhaps longer-term infections, a bigger gap with their testing. But time will tell, and Gary Whitlock's analysing, or is recording all those data and looking at them in detail so that we can characterise it. But an STI clinic, even now, is more than a clinic, and in the future, I think it has to shift more in that direction. So branded services that are tailored to diverse needs. So you could call this differentiated prevention, where you've actually said, where are people going? I need to be in that space if they've got sexual health needs to be met too. And outreach is the obvious thing that we've been doing throughout Forever and a Day again in hotspots, but also perhaps to support your local community needs. So we're on the doorstep of Chinatown in Soho, and we need to think about what the needs of that community would be with respect to sexual health. Of course, now sexual health includes the offer of self-sampling services and self-testing. We've been pushed a little bit in that direction, particularly by our commissioners who see this as a cheaper way to deliver services. not always the best thing, but there we go. And then that more peripheral thing that you do, the social media campaigns to raise awareness and continue with education, tailoring risk reduction advice online because there just isn't enough clinic time to do it all, and linking to your community organisations who are so good at providing this support, particularly to vulnerable populations, and then running a wellbeing programme. So we have a programme that David Stewart and Pat Cash run, writing groups, theatre, open mic. People can turn up, they can feel part of groups, and perhaps find other ways to meet people that don't necessarily mean just about sexual partners. So here's some examples, old examples of media campaigns. We ran the year that we saw a large number of deaths from overdose of G. Syphilis, we've had, every so often we'll get a syphilis, surge in syphilis infections again. The celebration of Sweden reaching 90, good old Prince Harry, and the HIV test profile, raising the profile. And then Grindr, a gang using Grindr to target gay men. So these are a little outdated, and really HEP-A should be in here because that's probably one of the ones we've run most recently. I don't think this projects awfully well, but I would recommend looking at Dean Street Prime if you wanted the detail on this. Each of these sort of strategies that people can use to reduce their risk is, if you click on it, you will see a series of videos made by gay men, for gay men, on helping them to take a break, maybe not just from sex, but from chems and sex, just as condoms plus PrEP, but regular testing if none of that is for you at the moment, at least detecting infection early. And that is, we had very good feedback from users of that, some of them even suggesting it's kind of saved their life at that point in time. What about PrEP access? Because that's not been straightforward in the UK. I mean, it takes a while to work through the commissioning process anyway, but then we had this squabble about who was the commissioner that should pay for it. But we did have I Want PrEP Now, and we had Prepster. We had fabulous community activity in raising awareness of PrEP and pointing people to buy PrEP. So we did actually have a large group who were purchasing their own generics online and being able to afford it. But since autumn of last year, we've had the PrEP impact study. We've enrolled 1,700 people on it. We managed to do that in 3 months by introducing it into the Express. So that was the catalyst to make PrEP follow-up be part of the Express. And then we ran out of places for the demand. So the latest thing is Prep Shop, where you can actually buy it from the clinic. Not everybody wants to buy it online because they have some concerns about the quality of the drug, although we have no evidence to say there's been a problem there. But some people do prefer to buy it directly from the clinic, and we've over 1,000 people registered on Prep Shop now. So I think in total we've got about 3,000 PrEP users in the clinic. Possibly more who we don't know about. But I talked previously about one of these issues, the differentiated care, the kind of concept of where people want to go. So Clinic Q is a charity. We're run by trans population, by Michelle and Aidan, I will think of as the leaders of that service, by us, for us. And in this setting, in this clinic, which they house in Dean Street, but they have the kind of run of it, helped by the clinical staff where they need clinical input. Families, partners, anyone who's questioning their gender is welcome to attend. And hormone therapy has to be part of that because that's a key thing that trans populations want advice about and want access to. But also there's yoga, art, acupuncture, hypnotherapy, benefits advice on housing and employment, peer mentorship and group therapy. So a service that's already providing things people want, and you plug in the HIV and STI testing. People might not want the HIV test straight away because they may need to build up a level of trust before they're willing to have it, but this is a way to deliver a service that's very acceptable. So what about online services? They've been mentioned already. Mobile friendly and online, SH24. This is run by South West London clinics, or linked to them, but it's totally online. Local clinics, local pharmacy signposts, doing the tests. There's a nice video showing you how, about confidentiality, partner notification. That's linked to SXT, which is an electronic partner notification platform. How else can we help? Signposting people to lots of service and ultimately ordering a free test. And I haven't got time to tell you the detail, okay? I definitely haven't got time, but I feel I've gone quickly. But there, at this conference, you can download these from the Beaver website if you want to see the conference presentations. Right, okay, I've got about 5 slides left. Was it 2 minutes?
No, you've had...
Okay. Right, we're going into the future with the vending machine. What about a vending machine? So I've been in Barcelona and southern Italy this summer, and I have seen these little spaces you go into where there's multiple vending machines where you can buy drinks and you can buy food. What about a space like that did HIV self-testing, STI testing, PEP and PrEP pack, and then using GPS for partner notification? Well, I was dreaming about this vending machine, but actually it is a reality. So the Martin Fisher Foundation have funded this vending machine, which has been installed in a Brighton sauna, and it delivers the BioSure HIV self-test. So third-generation test, wall-mounted, robust. They can do hundreds of thousands of vends, and you can access a website for live monitoring of sales. Next generation machine has got a contactless payment bit here on the bottom. It's more reliable and it can deliver even more kits. Option to interact in different languages, very critical. Okay, what about access to these machines? Well, it really should be just for the savvy consumer. So you should exclude, I think, those testing for the first time where that face-to-face intervention is so valuable in terms of making sure they're on spot for understanding the transmission of STIs and the risks. But you could have access for a card, like Gold or Prime. Could be linked to an app so you can actually map your use of the stuff. And when your credit's going out, you go to the clinic where you can top up your credit, and your data can be downloaded and transcribed at that point. So I leave you with that vision, and a last final vision. This is a map of the prediction of the next crime event in Washington. We use something similar, the police in London, to work out where the feet on the beach should be for the next 2 weeks. Why not do it for case and contact finding for STIs? So that's my home. I had a party, chemsex party, sex took place, and oh my goodness, it was also risky sex, but that's where it happened. Pop into the Express, have the test, and goodness me, an alert goes out. You had sex in that place, and you might have been exposed to the clap. So you need to go and get treated or tested and screened at least. So I just wonder if this is a better way of finding partners than doing the notification stuff. But I'm really looking forward to the partner notification talk that is coming. Right, I must be minus a minute now, but you did ask me to talk about barriers. So funding constraints
Sheena,
is a small pot for prevention. I promise you, yeah. Complacency amongst commissioners, provider constraints, population constraints. Those are there, and I need to leave you with the solutions. So you can tackle the costs of tests. That is a global issue, as Nicola said. You can make the throughput efficient. You have to have a team that can get the technology, and that happens in the top and the bottom. And you need to keep it lively, refreshing those campaigns and rewarding your staff and trusting your users, working with your community on positive messages. So I need to acknowledge the people who set that clinic up. So Alan and Necker are often referred to as the mummy and daddy of the clinic, and I guess that makes me granny. Clinic Q and the Brighton team and PHE, our surveillance team. Right. Sorry.